2 weeks ago, number 9, Joe Pisarcik of the New York Giants threw a 78-yard touchdown pass to wide receiver Jimmy Robinson. And last week against the Philadelphia Eagles, Parkway Joe and Jimmy Robinson proved that lightning can strike twice. This 80-yard strike through the rain was but one of many long scoring plays which characterized NFL play last weekend. But in this particular game at Giants Stadium, it was the Eagles who did the rest of the long-distance flying. The Polish rifle, Ron Jaworski, enjoyed the kind of day Coach Dick Vermeil had in mind when he traded All-Pro Charlie Young to obtain Jaworski from the Rams. Number 85, wide receiver Charlie Smith, turned this flanker screen into an easy 7 points. But Jaworski's longest bolt went to the man who replaced Charlie Young at tight end, Keith Krepfle, number 84. Last year, Charles Young averaged 2 catches per game and did not score a single touchdown. So far this season, unheralded Keith Krepfle also has 2 receptions per game, but for an average of 24 yards per catch, and he has already scored 3 touchdowns. But the play that broke the game open was, of all things, a 70-yard run, the longest by an Eagle player in 19 years. Number 32 is second-year man Herb Lusk, who in his college days at Long Beach State was known as the praying tailback. Jaworski's passing in 117 yards by Lusk led the thankful Eagles over the generous Giants 28-10. The San Francisco 49ers last week faced a flock of birds even more surprising than the Eagles. In case you hadn't noticed, the Atlanta Falcons have given up the fewest points in the NFL, 19. Have the most sacks in the NFL, also 19. And after swarming all over 2 49er quarterbacks, the formerly feeble Falcons suddenly find themselves alone in first place in the NFC West. This apparent touchdown was nullified by a penalty, but well aware of the limitations of their offense until Steve Bartkowski returns from knee surgery, the amazing Falcon defense kept digging for the end zone. This second apparent touchdown was also canceled by a penalty, so all the Atlanta defense could do was keep the 49ers backed up and wait for a break, which finally came when a Scott Hunter pass was lost in the sun and deflected to Alfred Jenkins for the game's only score. But that was enough to win for Coach Lehman Bennett's far-out Falcons. When the St. Louis Cardinals meet the Dallas Cowboys, look for a shootout, not a shutout. Terry Metcalf's 62-yard streak had the Redbirds flying higher than an inverted spike of the football. But the Cowboys now have an antidote for the Metcalf magic, and his name is Tony Dorsett. Dorsett's 77-yarder was the longest ever by a Cowboy runner. And in all, touchdown Tony picked up 141 yards on only 14 carries. But the Cards bounced back with a kind of explosion St. Louis fans have grown accustomed to in recent years. Jim Hart to Mel Gray, 60 yards and a touchdown. The kind that might break some teams, but not the Cowboys of Roger Staubach. A contortionist catch by Golden Richards assured the Cowboys' stature as the NFC's only undefeated team. 3 full games ahead of the now 4th place Cardinals in the NFC East. Once upon a time, the most feared of all offenses in the league was the Buffalo Bills. But since O.J.'s 2003-yard season, the Bills have traveled to the opposite end of the spectrum. Their one remaining gem is Simpson, a talent who can still turn disappearing routines into 50-yard gainers. Against the Jets last Sunday, the efforts of the Juice meshed beautifully with quarterback Joe Ferguson and receiver Lou Picone, and these results earned the Bills an early lead. One touchdown had the confetti flying in Buffalo's rich stadium, and for good reason. The Bills were playing the New York Jets, a team that seems to dig deep in their playbook only to emerge each Sunday with the same old play. Frustration is something New York has shown they can run to the right or left, or from any formation. But this season, new head coach Walt Michaels has second-year pro Richard Todd showing confidence few knew he possessed. Todd's poise was impressive last Sunday, and victory was secured when the second-year pro sent Clark Gaines left. 17 yards later, the New York Jets were the proud owners of their second win of the season, 24-19. Meetings like this don't count for much in terms of title contention, but as the season lengthens and the wins come harder, victories like these are all they have to remember. While isolated survivors sang, "How high's the water, Mama?" the Seattle Seahawks and the New England Patriots patrolled Schaefer Stadium last Sunday, merely looking for higher ground. But just when it seemed as though the top of the pile might be the only point above flood stage, the rains lessened, sending both teams in a panic to play as much as they could before the monsoon returned. In their haste, however, Seattle forgot to cover Patriot tight end Russ Francis, and this score left the finless Seahawks in the undertow. Darryl Stingley accounted for one of Steve Grogan's 3 touchdown passes, and number 44, Don Calhoun, paddled in for one more as the New England Patriots dunked Seattle 31-0. While web feet were the order of the day in New England, in Baltimore, spikes would do nicely. Here the Colts and the Miami Dolphins were paired, and with a fast track beneath them, 792 yards were amassed by these two unbeaten teams. Miami has emerged as one of the NFL's biggest big play teams this season. With such talents as number 86 Freddie Solomon, who breezed 90 yards against the Colts, the Dolphins have shown the ability to travel a long way in a split second. Whether sailing on the arm of Bob Greasy to grease lightning receivers like Solomon and Duriel Harris, or speeding on the gallop of Benny Malone, number 32, the Dolphins showed their AFC Eastern rival it has the dynamite to do a lot of damage. Malone tallied once from 52 yards out, then revved his motor and bounded 66 yards for another to round out a 28-point first-half performance by the streaking Dolphins. Miami's explosion would have ripped any other team apart, but their opponents were a team that knows something about the big play. It's a measure Baltimore has in abundance, the least of which goes by the tag of Mr. Versatile, Lydell Mitchell, number 26. This 64-yard Mitchell beauty got things rolling on the game's first play. And while Miami thundered and volleyed for scores of great length, Burt Jones steadied the Colts with a mixed diet of touchdowns. Tight end Raymond Chester held on for the go-ahead at 31-28. Ben Jones put the game away with 2 strikes to wide receiver Glenn Dowdy. In the end, it was a steadier Baltimore team that outgunned a freewheeling Miami club 45-28. A pleasing sign indeed for Colt head coach Ted Marchibroda. The Minnesota Vikings, time-worn, stone-faced veterans. NFC Central Division champions 8 of the last 9 years. Last week, the Detroit Lions arrived in Minnesota boasting the NFL's leading ground attack as well as the league's leading passer in Greg Landry. Perhaps today would mark the beginning of Minnesota's long-awaited decline. Perhaps, but probably not. For league-leading ground attacks and league-leading quarterbacks seldom prosper against the Vikings. Minnesota buried Greg Landry and friends, allowing the Lions all the yardage they wanted between the 20s, but only 1 harmless touchdown. Meanwhile, Fran Tarkenton and group scored twice, once on this extemporaneous downfield exchange between Ahmad Rashad, number 28, and receiving mate Sammy White. Minnesota's other score came in more conventional fashion. A 12-yard pass from Tarkenton to an unattended White in the corner. Somehow the Vikings keep surviving these Central Division showdowns. But then that's probably why they're annual Super Bowl contenders and why the Lions are perennial also-rans. Speaking of also-rans, the Green Bay Packers fit the mold nicely, and so might the Cincinnati Bengals if they don't soon start rolling some heads. Last week, the Bengals fell behind early on this splendid 14-yard reception by Barty Smith. Arms raised in joy, arms raised in disbelief, for in 2 previous defeats, Cincinnati failed to score a touchdown after being scored upon. But with the specter of early season elimination haunting them, Ken Anderson, Isaac Curtis, and the end zone became reacquainted. Cincinnati's problems to date surprisingly have been offensive problems. But last Sunday, the Bengals ran off 65 plays at more than 5 yards a crack. It was a good feeling. Cincinnati prevailed over Bart Starr's punchless Packers 17-7, staying abreast of the rest in the rugged AFC Central Division. And what about the rest? Well, what did Steeler quarterbacks number 15 Mike Kruzak, number 12 Terry Bradshaw, and Houston Oiler quarterback number 7 Dan Pastorini have in common last Sunday? If you said all 3 threw touchdown passes, you're wrong. Only Dan Pastorini could manage that. A 51-yard thing-of-beauty to Billy Johnson. Pastorini to Johnson proved to be the game-winning score, and it came just in time. For on this Sunday, what Pastorini had in common with his Steel City counterparts was bad luck. Dante fell beneath a Steeler pass rush and came up with a sprained ankle. Bradshaw flew through the air once too often and broke a wrist. Kruzak fell hard on his throwing arm. His shoulders separated. Thus, into Pittsburgh's quarterback vacuum stepped a man with the unlikely name of Tony Dungy, an ex-Big Ten quarterback who now plays safety. Dungy was entrusted with the job of moving the Steeler offense. The only hitch? Dungy had never taken a snap as a professional quarterback. And so it was that the underdog Houston Oilers disposed of 2 Pittsburgh Steeler quarterbacks and lived to take advantage of it. Houston won this episode of combat 27-10. Pittsburgh marched from the war zone thoroughly outgunned and severely wounded. And with two quarterbacks now in convalescence, the Steelers could be in a heap of trouble. But it was all in a day's work for the Giant Killers, who just donned their peacetime apparel and slipped quietly away. For the moment at least, all alone atop the AFC Central, and more than delighted to point it out. The Oakland Raiders do not visit a stadium, they invade it. Last week, the Cleveland Browns tried futilely to stem the flow of the attacking barbarians to no avail. The Browns got in a few good licks, but they were so few and far between that they occasioned New Year's Eve-like revelry and intimate celebration. In the end, one Cleveland score from Brian Sipe to Reggie Rucker did not equal 4 Errol Mann field goals and 2 Mark Van Egan 3-yard touchdowns. So once again, the poiseful Pillagers withdrew to their Bay Area stronghold in victory, 26-10. Meanwhile, sartorial splendor was one of the Chargers' strengths when they visited the Superdome with a defense that unhinged and undressed the Saints last week. Archie and the gang couldn't get it together even for the briefest moment, as the heady Charger defense left the New Orleans attack feeling somewhat intoxicated. While the Saints had no get up and go, the Lightning Brigade struck with hurdlers and long-distance runners. The hurdler was running back Joe Washington, and one long-distance runner was number 34, Ricky Young. This particular spectacular was nullified, but Young did score one valid 6-pointer. In the end, the Saints weren't canonized, but they were shell-shocked when Mike Fuller, number 42, blazed 88 yards for a 14-0 San Diego victory. So in the AFC West, the Raiders are big and bad. The Chargers are getting larger and kind of naughty themselves. And the Denver Broncos have a cute little mascot to bring them luck. I think the one on the right is the mascot. But with the Orange Crush defense, the Broncos don't live on luck. Chief signal caller Mike Livingston was harassed and humbled all afternoon. His frenzied throws flew errantly, this one captured by number 20 cornerback Lewis Wright, who made an exceptional return. Quarterback Craig Morton generated a small electric charge on offense with a spark provided by number 80 Rick Upchurch, who set up one score as the Broncos took a 23-0 lead. At this point, the Chiefs were psychologically beaten, having let too many things get to their heads. You can't really blame the Chiefs for the 23-7 final, because anyone would be intimidated by the Denver defensive Devils, who play a mile high and 3 miles wide. In 4 games, they've allowed only 26 points. So far, they're bloody but unbowed. But this week, it's showdown time in Oakland.